There's a huge crisis happening in American education. It affects how students read, how they write, and even how they think. But what if I told you the solution wasn't some brand new, complicated program, but something we've been overlooking the whole time? Something as simple and as powerful as a single sentence. Okay, take a look at this number. 75%. According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, that's the percentage of students in the U.S. who are not proficient writers. And let's be clear, we're not just talking about a few typos or bad grades. This is a fundamental breakdown in the ability to communicate ideas clearly.
And look, this isn't some new, shocking problem. Experts have been sounding this alarm for decades. I mean, this quote right here, it's from 2003. That shows you just how long writing has been pushed to the back burner in our schools. So before we can even get to the solution, we really have to wrap our heads around the problem. What does America's writing crisis actually look like on the ground? Well, it all starts at the most basic level you can imagine, the sentence. A shocking number of students just can't write a clear one. And that problem doesn't just go away. It follows them right from elementary school through high school and into their careers. For years, the big idea was that kids would just sort of discover how to write on their own. But the evidence is in. That approach has been a massive failure. So you've got to ask, right, why is this happening on such a huge scale? Well, it seems to come down to a missing foundation, not with the students, but in how we train our teachers to teach writing in the first place. And this right here gets to the absolute core of the issue. A huge chunk of teachers, about half, say they got little to no real training in how to teach writing. And over 60% of new teachers feel totally unprepared for it. Now, this isn't their fault. This is a systemic failure to give them the tools they need for one of their most important jobs. Remember that let kids discover it idea? Turns out it's not just failing in practice, it's completely unsupported by research. For 50 years. All the science actually tells us the exact opposite. Students, especially when they're starting out, need direct, clear instruction. Okay, so enough about the problem. This is where we pivot to the solution. And it all comes back to one elegant idea, the power of the sentence. This is the key that unlocks not just better writing, but better reading too. The magic ingredient here has a name, syntax. Now, don't let the technical term throw you. All it means is the architecture of a sentence. It's the set of rules that lets our brains know who did what to whom. It's what turns a random string of words into a real idea. And here's where we hit a major disconnect. Think about how we talk every day. It's informal, we use fragments, it's simple. But the language in books, the kind of formal language kids are expected to read and write in school, that's a whole different animal. It's far more complex. We're asking kids to leap across this giant gap with no bridge. I love how researcher Dr. Julie Van Dyke puts it. She says syntax is the glue between the words. That's perfect, right? It's not about boring grammar diagrams. It's the active process your brain uses to stick words together into meaning as you read. If that glue is weak, the whole thing just falls apart. I mean, at the end of the day, the logic is just so simple. If a student can't build one strong sentence, how on earth can we expect them to build a solid paragraph, let alone a whole persuasive essay? It all has to start with that foundation.
So, if the sentence is the foundation, how do we actually teach it? Well, it turns out there's a clear, straightforward process that built from tiny little kernels all the way up to full compositions. And the strategy is actually, well, it's pretty simple. Instead of facing down a scary blank page, students begin with a kernel, just the most basic core idea of a sentence. Check this out. The process can start with a simple kernel, like, he ordered secret bombing raids. Okay, then the teacher just prompts the student with questions. Who, where, when, why? And by answering those questions, the student systematically builds out a much richer, more detailed sentence. It's not magic, it's a repeatable method. And this approach, it isn't just for high schoolers. On the left, you see a kindergartner using because to explain their thinking. And on the right, a middle schooler is building a really nuanced argument. It's the same core strategy, just scaled up in complexity. It works at every grade level. This is about so much more than grammar. This is about teaching kids how to think. By using simple connecting words like because, but, and so, students are forced to think about cause and effect, contrast, and consequence. The sentence itself becomes a tool for analysis. And ultimately, what happens is that these well-built sentences become the literal building blocks for organized paragraphs.
An outline like this one shows how a student can structure a whole argument, from their main point to their supporting details, all because they have a solid foundation of clear, powerful sentences to work with.
So, putting all this into practice isn't just about one cool new trick for the classroom. It really requires a fundamental revolution in how we approach the teaching of writing altogether. Former Secretary of Education Arne Duncan really put the stakes perfectly. He said, "Imagine if 62% of doctors felt unprepared to do their job. We would have a revolution in our medical schools. So why on earth do we accept it for our teachers? This has to be a massive call to action for our teacher training programs."
The really good news in all of this is that we already have a model for how to do this. We've seen a revolution in reading education by teaching phonics systematically. Well, guess what? The same exact logic, the same rule-based system exists for syntax. It's not some unsolvable mystery. It's a skill that can be taught.
Which leaves us with one final critical question. We hear it all the time. Writing is thinking. Well, if that's true, if our very thoughts are built from the ideas we form in sentences, then how can we possibly afford to neglect the most fundamental building block of knowledge itself?